With me I have Dr Assad Abdul Rahman, a member of the Executive Committee of the PLO and former Palestinian Minister of Refugees here in Jordan. Thank you very much for joining us on RT.
My pleasure.
Can the international community change Netanyahu and his government?
I sincerely believe so, simply because Israel is in so many ways, Israel is a superpower, a super regional power. It has got at least 200 nuclear heads, you know. It has got the fourth and some say the fifth strongest army in the world. It has got a very solid economy. But this regional superpower is a subsystem in the international system itself, where there are international superpowers like the US, middle-range superpowers like Russia, like Germany, like France, like the European Union, China, etc., Japan even, and all of those, let alone the third world countries and Latin American countries, all those now understand two things. Number one, the plight and the sufferings of the Palestinian people and the need to give them a state and self-determination. And number two, the arrogance and the fanaticism and the expansionism of the present Israeli government.
Why hasn't the international pressure on Netanyahu's government produced any results? I mean, if you look, for example, at settlement expansion, it does seem as if the Israeli government is moving ahead irrespective of what the world community says.
I mean, if we go to specific issues, for example, if Mr. Obama alone, meaning the American administration, decide to stop its military, financial, economic, and political aid, any Israeli government would come on its knees. Number two, the European Union alone, with the extensive bilateral commercial dealings with Israel alone, and the technological one, forget about other countries, these two, if they go together, I'm sure they can impose a solution. And we don't want a solution that would destroy Israel or eliminate Israel or make Israel become a loser. All that we're asking for is to the Israeli government, all that we are asking from the Israeli government is to submit to international resolution.
Do you think that Russia could play a bigger role in this region?
Yes, I'm sure that Russia can play a much more important role. Take, for example, something that I support and we, the Palestinians, support, an international conference to be held in Moscow. I mean, Moscow has been advocating that for so many years now, but nobody is listening to it. Take another example. Russia is a member in the Quartet, which is in charge of this whole Arab-Israeli and Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And we all know, and we all notice all the time, daily, that the Russian role and the UN role and the European Union role is more or less, I don't want to use this term subordinate to the Americans, but the Americans are the only active player in that quartet.
For a long time, there's been concern in Jordan that the Israeli establishment wants to push Jordan to becoming a Palestinian state. Would you agree with this assessment, and is it realistic?
If we go to 77 and the decade after, yes, there were serious and loud voices and noises calling for such a thing. And one of their champions was Ariel Sharon himself. And later, especially with the peace treaty with Jordan and with the Oslo, such voice subsided, became much almost unheard. And even Sharon had to acquiesce and to change, at least in the appearances. But right now, the fears are enforced, and the voice, the almost non-existent voice after Oslo, is now being heard, and it's getting little bit louder, simply because we have in Israel now the most extremist, fanatic, expansionist government ever.
What about Netanyahu's announcement that he was going to deport some 70,000 Palestinians from the West Bank to Jordan?
What the military order and the political order says is those whom they consider, I mean the Israeli government consider, to be illegal residents coming from Jordan should go back to Jordan. And those who are coming from Gaza should go back to Gaza, as if we have two states, you know. As a matter of fact, it's even much more dangerous than that. They consider all those who are in the West Bank as presumed citizens. In other words, every one of us is a presumed citizen, and he has to prove that he has got the legal documents that are given by Israel.
Here in Jordan, where there are 13 Palestinian refugee camps, would you say that Palestinians are treated equally to Jordanians?
There are all kinds of Palestinians living in Jordan. The majority, the absolute majority, are Jordanians. And they are considered by the constitution and by the government and by the parliament and with its two chambers as Jordanians. And there are some other Palestinians, like about 180,000 from Gaza, who have a transitional status, and they are Palestinians. And there are people like myself who live in Jordan with a permanent residency, who are considered to be Palestinians and not Jordanians. Now, for those who are considered to be Jordanians, some of them are of the opinion that they don't have equal rights. In a way, this is true. But in another, when you start analyzing such complaints, you would notice that in fact, depending on whom you define to be a Palestinian, or somebody who comes from a Palestinian origin, did he come to Jordan and became Jordanian 70 years ago, or 50 years ago, or 20 years ago? If you compare them with the other East Jordanians, if you talk, for example, about poverty, we are very equal. All are very equal. If you talk about lack of 100% political freedoms, yes, they are all equal. If you talk about certain posts, yes, maybe they are not equal. But the others, we have to see the other side of the coin by many who see that the present Prime Minister is of a Palestinian origin. He's a Jordanian, but of a Palestinian origin. Like the chairman of the Senate, Mr. Tahir al-Masri, is also a Jordanian of a Palestinian origin who's having this higher post. But if you consider them Jordanians, then you don't see that they were given the privileges and the rights that some see that the certain Jordanians of Palestinian origins are deprived of. We have a problem as far as all over the Arab world, as far as the issue of citizenship is concerned. That also affects Jordan. It also affects some other Arab countries.
What percentage of this group would you say would still want to return to Palestine as refugees?
Yes, well, if we are given the right of return that was adopted by the UN, And if that is to be implemented, a very high majority of them would like to return back to Haifa, Yafa, Akka, whatever, Bir al-Sabi', etc. But if you come and tell them, look, we'll give you the right of return, but you would be a second-class citizen. You would never get an Israeli citizenship, number one. Number two, okay, you will come there, but you will never get back your properties that they have taken, we, the Israelis, have taken from you in 48. And you will not be allowed to have the same constitutional right like the Israelis, etc., etc., etc. Then you would find a small minority would accept that.
What is your solution to the right of return? How would you do it?
At least those who've had ownership of land or property, etc., should be allowed and should be compensated for the sufferings of 62 years. If that is implemented, it wouldn't cover all of the Palestinians, number one, Palestinian refugees, number one, and the others who never owned anything in Palestine, they were like any other ordinary people, should have the option of returning.
Dr. Assad Abdul Rahman, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.